The Ghost Paycheck. On July 1st of every year, a strange ritual happens in the world of professional baseball. A man named Bobby Bonilla, who hasn't swung a bat in over 2 decades, receives a check for $1.19 million. It is a joke to the fans, a meme on social media, and a mystery to anyone who understands the value of money. Why would a billion-dollar franchise agree to pay a retired player until the year 2035? The answer isn't in a locker room. It's in a penthouse on Manhattan's East Side. It's a story of corporate greed, a legendary con man, and a financial downfall so deep it nearly dragged the New York Mets into total bankruptcy. This isn't just a contract dispute. This is the story of how the Wilpon family, the owners of the Mets, fell for the biggest Ponzi scheme in human history. This is the business of being blinded by a lie. The golden goose. To understand the downfall, you have to understand the lure. Fred Wilpon and Saul Katz were more than just sports owners. They were real estate titans. But even titans want a shortcut. In the late 80s, they were introduced to a man who seemed to have the Midas Touch. His name was Bernie Madoff. Madoff wasn't just an investor. He was a former chairman of the NASDAQ. He offered something no one else could: consistent, double-digit returns. Year after year, rain or shine, Madoff's accounts showed a 12 to 15% profit. For the Mets ownership, Madoff wasn't just a broker, he was their bank. By the late 90s, the Mets weren't making decisions based on their ticket sales or TV revenue. They were making decisions based on the Madoff Math. If they owed a player $10 million, they'd think, why pay him now? If we leave that money with Bernie, it will double in 5 years. This was the ultimate rule-breaking of fiscal responsibility. They were gambling with the team's future on a game that was rigged from the start. The Bobby Bonilla genius. The year was 2000. The Mets wanted to release Bobby Bonilla, but they still owed him $5.9 million. Under normal circumstances, you pay the man and move on. But Fred Wilpon had a Madoff idea. He offered Bonilla a deal. Don't take the $5.9 million now. Wait 11 years. Then, we will pay you $1.19 million every year for 25 years. Bonilla's agent did the math and realized his client would eventually walk away with nearly $30 million. He said yes. The Mets said yes. Why? Because according to their Madoff statements, that $5.9 million would grow into $60 or $70 million by the time the payments started. In the eyes of the Mets ownership, they weren't losing money. They were getting a $5 million player for free. It was a masterpiece of business engineering, except for one small detail. The money didn't exist. The statements were printed on a laser printer in a dusty office. There were no trades. There were no profits. There was only the big lie. The downfall of a billionaire doesn't happen all at once. It happens slowly, then suddenly. While the Mets were signing stars and building a new stadium, the FBI was closing in on the penthouse. Dozens of elite investors were about to realize they were broke. But the Mets were in a unique position of horror. They hadn't just invested their own money. They had tied the entire operating budget of a Major League Baseball team to a phantom. Stay with me. Because when the House of Cards finally collapsed in December 2008, the business of the Mets didn't just fail, it became a crime scene. The collapse, December 11th, 2008, Bernie Madoff is arrested. The news ripples through New York like a physical shock. For the Wilpon family, the world didn't just stop, it inverted. They didn't just lose the $500 million they thought they had in their accounts. They were about to be sued for the money they had already withdrawn. Enter Irving Picard, the court-appointed trustee. He looked at the Mets books and saw a disturbing pattern. Because the Wilpons had been with Madoff for so long, they had withdrawn profits that were actually just stolen money from newer investors. The rule-breaking here was systemic. The trustee filed a clawback lawsuit demanding the Mets return $1 billion. The team was suddenly a hollow shell. They had to take out emergency loans from Major League Baseball just to keep the lights on. They stopped signing big-name free agents. The payroll plummeted. The fans saw a team that refused to compete. But what they were actually seeing was a massive corporate entity bleeding out in public. The hidden cost of the downfall. The monetary downfall wasn't just about the lost millions. It was about the opportunity cost. While their rivals, the New York Yankees, were spending hundreds of millions to win titles, the Mets were stuck in a legal purgatory. We have to look at the human cost of this business failure. Scouts were fired. Minor league facilities were neglected. A generation of Mets fans watched a big market team act like a small market team. All because the owners were trying to pay back the fake money they had spent years before. This is the ultimate lesson in financial downfall. Debt is a ghost that follows you. The Mets owners were forced to sell off pieces of the team just to settle with the Madoff victims. They clung to power for a decade, but the damage was done. The brand was tarnished, and the Madoff tax was being paid by the fans every time they bought a ticket to see a losing team. The digital age and the new owner. The story finally reached its breaking point in 2020. The Wilpons were forced to sell the team to Steve Cohen, a hedge fund billionaire, for $2.4 billion. It was the highest price ever paid for a North American sports team. On the surface, the Wilpons won. They walked away with billions. But the downfall is found in what they could have had. If they had never met Bernie Madoff, if they had invested in the S&P 500 like a normal business, they would have been worth double that amount. They lost their reputation, they lost their standing in the league, and they became the poster children for stupid money. Even now, under a new owner who spends more than anyone in history, the ghost of the downfall remains. Because every July 1st, that check still goes out. $1.19 million. A permanent reminder that in the world of high-stakes business, the fastest way to become a millionaire is to start as a billionaire and make one Madoff mistake. The cliffhanger. But here is the final, chilling thought. The Madoff scandal was a once-in-a-century event. Or was it? As we look at the current landscape of sports, with crypto exchanges buying stadium naming rights, and private equity firms buying up team shares. We see the same patterns emerging: high returns, unregulated markets, and owners looking for a shortcut. I've been digging into the financial filings of a current NFL team that recently partnered with a high-yield investment firm. The numbers look hauntingly familiar. They look like the Mets in 2007. The names have changed, but the business remains the same. If my research is correct, we are months away from another Madoff moment in pro sports. And this time, it won't just be one team. It will be the whole league. Subscribe and hit the bell. Because when this bubble bursts, you'll want to be the first one who saw it coming. The next check might not just be $1 million. It might be the last check a team ever writes.